you're looking for a handout, you're in the wrong end of town. Nothing for free over here. You have to work for everything you get.
No, I'll pay for this guy. Here you go. Start a pot. I'll pay for you. No, I'll decide when to give you money. There, there's another one. There you go.
You're not a communist.
No, start the pot. No more handouts.
Republicans don't like handouts. They don't like mooching freeloaders. The conservatives are upset that their taxes have to pay for liberal government handouts. Fair enough. Except, not when you look at the data. Contrary to popular assumption, those most reliant on government dependency live in Republican voting states. Now that's according to the IRS election history and facts. Most non-payer states are typically southern, Republican-leaning, conservative states. They say they hate handouts, but receive most of them. This fact is completely opposite of what many assume, but most of us are happy to just stick with our assumptions, false or not. So what? Are we stupid? No. But sometimes we choose to believe in provably false assumptions. This highlights a running theme in the Obama economy. It's the Obama economy. You stupid, goddamn, ignorant son of a bitch. It's come to my attention that there are essentially two conversations happening in this country regarding the economy. On one hand, we have the conversation happening between most Americans. Most Americans base our knowledge of the economy primarily on how we feel about it. Instead of doing the proper research, it's easier to sum up our economic hardships with a simple phrase. Thanks, Obama. We take the Cliff Notes versions of economics that our choice media dumps down for us, and add that to our pre-existing assumptions, and from that form our view of the economy. We have a term for how Americans feel about the economy. It's called the Consumer Confidence Index. On the other hand, we have the conversation happening amongst economy nerds. These nerds are the guys who use Consumer Confidence Index in regular conversation. These are the data wonks who get their information directly from the BLS and CBO databases. They base their economic opinion on what math and statistics tell them. People who get their economic and statistical information from the bipartisan sources themselves. No media middleman to dumb it down for them. Interestingly, how Americans feel about the economy and the gross domestic product, the real economy, track pretty closely. If people think the economy is in the shitter, they slow down spending and investing, which actually hurts the economy, puts it further into the shitter. People who have confidence in the economy start to invest and support it more, which helps the actual economy. Because of this basic Econ 101 fact, our assumptions can influence reality. But this doesn't mean that our assumptions of the economy are always right. Far from it. When our assumptions are off, they can be way the f*** off. Okay, pretty much from day one, conservatives knew that this guy was out to take their money. That was the assumption anyway. Republicans knew that he was out to rob hard-working, middle-class Americans. Watch out, he's gonna tax you.
Of the Teabag Tax Day protest against the Obama administration tax policies.
Heck, the Tea Party protests were inspired by the assumption that he was going to raise taxes on hard-working, middle-class white Americans. I mean Americans. On Tax Day of April 2009, Fox News sponsored the Fox News Tea Party Tax Day protests. The end goal? End taxes imposed by this new, strange-looking fellow with the funny name. Oops. Obama's actual policy involved far more tax cuts than raises. Pre-existing assumption? He'll raise taxes. Actual observable reality? He cut taxes. Well, in social psychology, you learn that facts are likely to be rejected if they conflict with what you already believe. True or not. Popular conservatives like Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, and Bill O'Reilly, they were telling their followers that Obama was here to raise their taxes, take their money. In reality, only the temporary Bush tax cuts for the wealthy were left to expire. wealthy like Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, and Bill O'Reilly. The tax cuts for everyone else, like most of the Tea Party protesters, were made permanent under the Obama administration. It's brilliant when you think about it. The richest conservatives convinced the most gullible working-class conservatives to protest their own tax cuts in favor of the wealthy themselves. So they protested future tax plans that in reality were their own tax cuts. Stupid? No, just misled. And why prove yourself wrong with data and research when it's so much simpler to scapegoat your problems? Thanks, Obama. Across the country, everyone flocked to the Tea Party protests, from old white folks who loved Fox News to old white folks who loved Fox News and silly hats. And for every year of the Obama presidency, the tax day protests have been passionate, energetic, and completely ignorant of the fact that overall he lowered people's taxes to historical rates in some levels. And cut spending, and cut the budget, all provable facts from sources that the Republicans themselves use, like the Congressional Budget Office, but nevertheless rejected by many Republicans. Simple, clear numbers and math can be rejected in the minds of those where it conflicts with their pre-existing assumptions. Now, some economically smart conservatives have the sense to accept provable facts, like Obama cut far more taxes than he raised.
He's got one new idea. I admit this, he has one thing he did not do in his first 4 years. He's said he's going to do in the next 4 years, which is to raise taxes. And
Some accepted the facts coming out of their own Congressional Budget Office that Obama didn't raise taxes as expected. But we all know that math has a long-running liberal bias. But are you going to go listen to nonpartisan databases like the Center for Budget Policy or the Congressional Budget Office, showing you math with numbers and measurable facts, or are you going to trust your gut? See, bipartisan institutions show us how tax increases under Obama are far outmatched by tax cuts. Most all presidencies have a mix of tax cuts and raises throughout their term. It can't be oversimplified with just tax cuts or just tax raises. Most leaders know the economy is always fluid and changing, and that taxes need to be adjusted up and down as circumstances in the real world are constantly in flux. Heck, it's provable historical record that Republican demigod Ronald Reagan himself raised taxes 11 times. What? I reject that! But as we know, people are likely to reject information when it conflicts with what we believe.
We overdid it in '81, cut taxes too much. We came back with a big deficit plan in 1982. Unemployment's 10%. The economy's in dire shape. And we raised taxes by 1.2% of GDP, which would be $150 billion a year right now, not 10 years down the road, but right now. That's what we did in 1982 because we still had people in government who realized you can't simply be putting on this kind of debt into the world financial market.
So if you cut revenue from the federal budget begins to lack revenue. Who could have seen that coming except for absolutely everybody? So Reagan re-raised some taxes. Let's be fair, Obamacare raises some taxes too on drug manufacturers that get extra business because of the law, along with taxes on tanning beds and cigarettes. But even all of that combined is less than how much Reagan raised taxes. You see, both of these guys knew better than to think that all taxes are always bad. Economics isn't meant to be oversimplified like that. Anyway, we don't talk about that, do we? When popular conservatives like Rush Limbaugh are asked about the tax increases under Reagan, he simply says, "Where did you get the silly idea that he raised taxes?" Well, we get this information from the Congressional Budget Office, from the Department of the Treasury, and from Reagan's own economic director.
And we raised taxes.
But despite these facts being readily accessible, this stuff isn't common knowledge. Most of us don't have time to read the economic figures from the CBO or budget analysis. We don't have the attention span. And with that in mind, here's a brief intermission of adorable pet videos. Anyway, Democrats love to bring up the fact that Obama inherited a bad economy. They beat it to death like a dead horse for years. Republicans were ready to call it the Obama recession from the day he took office, conveniently forgetting that this guy happened. But you know it's a lot simpler and easier than proving yourself wrong by researching the critical events and timeline around the recession? Just chalk it all up to, thanks Obama. There's little to no disagreement that the economic collapse happened at the end of the Bush administration, and we've done nothing but recover steadily since Obama passed the Recovery Act at the beginning of his term, though this conflicts with a pre-existing insinuation that Obama is to blame for the bad economy.
They're tired of settling for this new normal under the Obama economy. And frankly, they're tired of asking the question, where are the jobs?
Working class jobs, blue collar jobs where people can earn a living, provide for their family. Those are the jobs that have been decimated under the Obama economy.
I think people are going to conclude that the Obama economy is not working.
In the Obama economy, we are facing a looming fiscal crisis that some have called the most predictable in history.
But you can't really blame his political rivals for shifting the blame. They're doing their job. If you somehow rationalize the shift of the collapse to Obama, he can assume blame for a lot of stuff. Just, draw this line here. And you see, it's no longer the Bush recession, it's the Obama recession. The economic collapse, Obama's fault. The massive deficit, Obama's fault. If you call it the Obama recession, you rewrite history to show that the economy didn't slowly recover under Obama, but just plummeted and then slowly recovered. This is, of course, completely divorced from history and logic. If we step back and we look at the whole picture, accepted bipartisan math clearly shows us one number being less than other numbers. Unemployment is down from the recession that Bush left us. Official unemployment numbers, unofficial numbers, take your pick. There's a reason why the Bureau of Labor and Statistics counts this number as the official number. This unofficial number counts many working people along with the unemployed. But guess what? That's gone down too. The pre-existing assumption from Obama's critics is that he's the spendingest spender that ever spent. They look back on his first term and think that he bawled like a chemo patient. One way to maintain this provably false belief is to confuse the debt with the deficit. The debt has gone up, the deficit has gone down. Remember, the debt is how much we owe overall. The deficit is how much we make versus how much we spend. The debt is huge because all of these presidents contributed to it in one way or another. The debt is the combined effect of all of these people's rates of spending. There's a big difference in the spending increases under each of these presidents. Some reduced the deficit so much that we actually got a surplus. The problem is, math doesn't give a damn about your first impressions or assumptions. Math shows one number clearly lower than other numbers, and that Obama was the slowest to increase spending in decades. Decades. Math really doesn't care if you feel like Obama hurt jobs. According to the Bipartisan Bureau of Labor and Statistics and the Bipartisan Congressional Budget Office, unemployment is lower than when he took office. At least that's the case to those of us who kept paying attention after about this point here. Math really doesn't care if you believe that everyone's paying more taxes under Obama. Actually, for those who had their tax cuts expire under Obama, they're still paying less than under other presidents. Math doesn't care if your initial impression was that Obamacare would destroy the country with high healthcare costs. In reality, you can see that spending increases have slowed to their slowest point in decades. While a record number of new people are finding coverage, overall, healthcare costs have slowed to its slowest levels in decades. Healthcare spending still increases because of the baby boomer generation entering the age of retirement, but overall, healthcare spending has slowed to historic levels. But wait, wasn't Obamacare supposed to destroy the country? Could it be possible that the rhetoric was a little bit overblown?
When Obamacare was debated in Congress, we screamed from the rooftops that it just wouldn't work, that it would be a job killer.
Obamacare is the biggest job killer in this country.
Let's repeal this failure before it literally kills women, kills children, kills kills senior citizens. Let's not do that. Let's love people.
Remember, when the president took office, jobs were a major concern for the American people. That first year, he passed the Recovery Act, and in the following year, passed Obamacare. With people concerned about jobs, Republicans tactfully began to argue that this new healthcare law would hurt jobs. People are worried about jobs? Let's say this law will hurt jobs. Jobs are hurting because of the recession left by the last president, but let's say that the jobs are hurting because of this new healthcare law which hasn't even gone into effect. The problem with that argument? The Republicans' own Congressional Budget Office says that is not the case, and could they please stop misquoting them? The actual source that the Republicans were using said that the Republicans were misquoting them. They said because of the law, people's health care was no longer tied to having a full-time job. Because of that, some people would seek part-time work or start their own business and just buy their own health care on the open market. The total change in jobs due to Obamacare equaling less than 1% of the total labor force. Wait, all this fuss over less than 1% of the labor force? Really? And they're not even losing their jobs by getting fired? So according to the Republicans' very own source, the law wouldn't result in lost jobs. In fact, for many reasons, we've actually gained jobs since the Obama Recovery Act was enacted. So several straight years of consecutive job growth, and we're still waiting for Obamacare to devastate the economy. You can't always expect people to admit when they're wrong, especially if they've invested a good amount of rage into their argument. I mean, the Tea Party wouldn't want to look stupid. Speaking of rage, remember those goddamn bailouts? Hundreds of legitimate sources track the effects of those economic bailouts over time. How much we paid versus how much we earned back in interest. Most of us stopped paying attention after those initial investments were made. But the economists who follow the money, even after the rest of us have lost interest, eventually see a return on the investment. Altogether, counting both the auto, the TARP, the Fannie and Freddie bailouts, $613 billion has been invested, loaned, or paid out. Ouch, that hurt. No one's arguing that. But we've made $659. That's more. But it angered Republicans when Obama bailed out the auto industry. They even nominated a guy who said that the auto industry should have been left to go bankrupt.
Should they have used the funds to bail out General Motors and Chrysler? No.
Let Detroit go bankrupt.
I said from the very beginning the auto industry needed to go through a bankruptcy process.
You said, quote, if General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler get the bailout that their chief executives asked for yesterday, you can kiss the American automotive industry goodbye.
That's exactly right. If you write a check, they're going to go out of business.
GM, Ford, and Chrysler are all making money.
The U.S. auto industry is thriving once again. For the first time in 14 years, Chrysler is reporting a profit.
Sales surging 44% in January, making a big comeback.
This morning, GM is going to be reporting record profits.
It's a record breaker for GM.
But most of us stopped paying attention after those initial investments. He bailed out the companies, and we cried tyranny, socialism, and our attention span kind of died out there. It was really old news by the time profits came rolling back. We had other stuff on our minds by then. The day the news broke that the bailouts were now turning a profit, the life of Kim Kardashian was a spectacle with gripping turmoil. Yes, this was the news the day bailout investments turned into a profit. To some, the bailouts will always be remembered as tyranny and socialism. But with that, you should ask, was it also tyranny and socialism when Reagan did it in 1984? According to official FDIC history, this Reagan bailout was the most significant failure resolution in the history of federal deposit insurance corporations, and first coined the phrase, too big to fail. And was it also tyranny and socialism in 1989, when the first Bush administration bailed out the savings and loan industry at a loss? And was it also tyranny and socialism in 2001, when the second Bush administration lent the airline industry for a net loss of about $14 billion? But all of this kind of conflicts with the narrative that Obama is the socialist bailout guy. Sometimes a step back and a look at the larger picture of the economy can work as a good smack upside the head type of reality check. Remember, in March of 2009, just March of 2009, we lost 826,000 jobs. We were losing 26,000 a day. The stock market bottomed out like a mother... Regardless of who gave us the recession, from day one, the Republicans were ready to blame Obama for all the bad in the economy, and all too happy to call it the Obama economy.
Under the Obama economy.
Under the Obama economy.
The Obama economy.
In the Obama economy, we are...
But do you think they would be so eager to call it the Obama economy if they read their own congressional reports? Today, 10 million jobs added since the recession and counting. 60 straight months of consecutive job growth and counting. The unemployment level fallen to below when he took office and still dropping. Taxes down. Growth rates of health insurance premiums down. Deficit down. Corporate profits up. So, thanks, Obama. No, legitimately, thanks. So, if the economy is recovering from the Bush recession, why don't we feel it more? Why don't we feel like the economy is improving at the rate that economics says it is? Even though corporate tax rates are down and corporate profits have risen to historically high levels, working wages are still stuck. It's not that the rich haven't gotten richer. The rich have gotten very rich according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the S&P 500. Even though profits are up, wages are not. Some believe that when the rich prosper, the wealth is supposed to trickle down to others. This trickle down doesn't seem to be happening. Turns out, if you give rich people money, they like to keep it. Well, there was a fight in Congress to raise the minimum wage to meet the current financial climate, but Republicans blocked the vote. People's pay could have been increased to help people feel the effects of the recovering economy, but the Republicans blocked the vote. But go ahead, say it. Deny all logic and fact and simplify the issue. Go with the simple gut reaction instead of actually looking at data that tells you otherwise. Go with what your gut tells you. Blame Obama. Thanks, Obama.
Daydream, I fell asleep amid the flowers for a couple of hours on a beautiful day.